You're trying to astral project. You've been laying there, relaxing your body and keeping your mind focused, but instead of becoming aware while your body falls asleep, you either lose focus, fall completely asleep, or become so excited when something finally starts happening that you wake yourself up. And maybe you've had the same problem with lucid dreaming. You finally realize you're dreaming, and then the dream disappears. These are some of the most common challenges people run into when practicing astral projection and lucid dreaming. Hi, welcome back to the Astral Gateway podcast. I'm Nurit Weiss-Davicioni. In the previous episode, we talked about fear of the vibrations, sleep paralysis, having an out-of-body experience, or something frightening happening during the experience, and how fear can interrupt the process. Today, I want to talk about some of the other challenges that can get in the way. Falling asleep too quickly, having a mind that won't settle down, losing focus, physical discomfort, losing lucidity in a dream, doubt, and more. These are all things that can happen while you're learning to work with these states of awareness. And let's go through them one at a time and talk about what you can actually do when they happen. Okay, the first challenge is falling asleep too quickly, and this is a very common one. You lie down, you relax your body, you start focusing on your breath or repeating a mantra, everything seems to be going well, and then you wake up 6 hours later. You didn't experience anything, you didn't even realize you've fallen asleep. Now, the first thing I want to say is don't automatically assume you need to try harder. Sometimes you're simply too tired. If you're practicing at the end of a long day, your body may be ready for sleep. The moment you relax, it just takes the opportunity. So one of the first things you can experiment with is your timing. Try practicing when you're relaxed but not completely exhausted. Or try wake back to bed. You sleep for about 4 to 6 hours, wake up briefly, and then return to bed with the intention of remaining aware as your body falls asleep. And the key here is what you do during the time you're awake. You don't necessarily want to get up and become completely alert. You might sit quietly, read something related to your practice, meditate, or simply think about what you want to experience. Then you return to bed. Your body is tired, your mind is a little more alert now, and then you can create a much better balance. You can also use a simple phrase as you fall back asleep. I will remain aware as my body falls asleep. Just let it be there. You don't have to keep repeating it all the time. And then as you start drifting off, just notice the transition. You might notice your thoughts become less logical. You might notice images beginning to appear. Or you might feel your body becoming heavy or distant. The important thing is not to suddenly think, oh my God, it's happening. Okay, so just keep observing, because that moment of excitement can bring you straight back to full waking awareness. And that brings us to another challenge, getting excited when something finally starts happening. You may have been practicing for weeks. Then suddenly you feel vibrations, or you hear a strange sound, or you feel as if your body is becoming very light, and immediately your mind goes, oh, finally, this is it. And then nothing. You're awake. The experience has disappeared. Okay, so what do you actually do? You practice becoming familiar with the sensation before they happen. When you read about vibrations or sleep paralysis or anything related, try not to build up a dramatic picture in your mind. These experiences can feel unusual, but unusual doesn't automatically mean something is wrong. So when something starts happening, try to treat it just as information. You can say to yourself, I'm feeling vibrations, rather than saying, oh, something is happening to me. When you hear something, you can think, okay, I can hear a sound now, and not, oh, what is this? Is something in the room? Or you can say, I feel my body becoming very light, and not, am I leaving my body right now? That small change in how you relate to the experience can make a big difference. So observe it. Don't grab onto it. Don't try to force it to become stronger. Just let it develop. The next challenge is a mind that will not settle down. I'm sure you know this situation. You lie down to practice and suddenly your brain decides this is the perfect time to think about everything. Your shopping list, an argument from last week, something embarrassing you said 10 years ago, what you need to do tomorrow, and then you become annoyed that you're thinking. And now you're thinking about the fact that you're thinking. So yeah, that doesn't usually help, right? Instead of trying to completely stop your thoughts, give your attention somewhere specific to go. For example, follow your breathing. But don't just say, I'm going to focus on my breath. Actually, give yourself something to notice. Notice the feeling of the air entering your nose. Notice the movement of your chest or abdomen. Notice the change between the inhale and the exhale. When your mind wanders, come back to that. Or you can also use a mantra, something simple. You might repeat, relax, or stay aware, or I'm aware as my body falls asleep. The words themselves aren't magic, okay? They're simply just an anchor. And don't get discouraged if your mind keeps wandering. Every time you notice that you've drifted and you come back, then you practice in focus. That is the exercise. The next challenge is physical discomfort. And this is where I think people sometimes make the practice unnecessarily difficult. You get an itch, your arm is uncomfortable, your back starts hurting, and now you think, if I move, I've ruined everything. So no, if you're uncomfortable, then get comfortable, okay? You don't have to torture yourself to astral project. But you can also learn to distinguish between actual discomfort and the simple urge to move because you're becoming aware of your body. This is something you can experiment with. If it's a minor itch, notice it for a few seconds. Does it fade? Sometimes it does. If your body is really uncomfortable, then adjust your position. The goal is to relax your body, not to prove that you can lie completely motionless. Before you begin, prepare your body. Stretch, use progressive muscle relaxation. Start with your feet and gradually move upward. Relax your toes, your feet, your thighs, your stomach, chest, shoulders, arms, and so on. And as you relax each area, actually feel the difference between tension and relaxation. That makes the exercise much more practical than simply telling yourself, relax. The next challenge is losing focus. And here's where people often make the mistake of trying to hold their attention on one thing too intensely. They think, I have to concentrate on this image perfectly, but intense concentration can create tension. So instead, just think of your attention as something you gently return. You might use a visual anchor. Imagine a pendulum moving slowly from side to side. Don't try to force the image to be perfect. Just keep returning to the movement. Or imagine a soft light, or focus on a sensation in your body. The important thing is that you have something to return to when your attention drifts. And honestly, it will drift. That's normal. Your job isn't to hold perfect focus for an hour. Your job is to notice when you've lost it and bring it back again and again. Over time, that becomes easier. Another problem is inconsistent practice. Now, I understand why this happens. You practice for a few nights, nothing happens, you get frustrated, and you stop. Then, maybe a month later, you start again, and you feel like you're starting from zero. So instead of making your practice depend entirely on whether you have an experience, give yourself smaller things to work on. Maybe tonight your goal is simply to relax your body properly. Maybe tomorrow your goal is to maintain awareness a little longer as you fall asleep. And maybe another night you focus on remembering your dreams. Maybe you spend 5 minutes practicing visualization. These things build the skill you need. You can also create a very simple routine. For example, a few minutes of relaxation, a few minutes of focus, then your chosen technique. You don't have to practice for hours, and you don't have to turn every night into a test. The goal is to create familiarity, because the more familiar you become with the process, the less you have to think about every little thing you're doing. Now, let's talk about lucid dreaming. A common problem is becoming lucid and then losing the dream almost immediately. So you realize I'm dreaming and suddenly the dream starts fading. Or you become so excited that you wake up. So when you become lucid, the first thing I would suggest is don't rush. Stay where you are, look around, notice the details, feel the ground beneath your feet, touch something, rub your hands together, listen to the sounds around you. You're giving your attention to the dream, and that can help you become more present within it. You can also say to yourself, I'm dreaming, not in a panicked way, just as a reminder, and then look around again. Don't immediately try to fly through the sky or transform the entire dream. You can do it later. First, stay in the dream. That is the skill you are building. And one of the best ways to improve your chances of becoming lucid is to practice questioning your reality during the day. But do it properly. Don't just ask, am I dreaming, and immediately answer no. Actually stop. Look around. Ask yourself why you believe you're awake. Look at your surroundings. Think about what you were doing a few minutes ago. Make it a real habit, because if you only perform a reality check mechanically, you may do the same thing in a dream and never question the result. Now, sleep paralysis. We talked about fear in the previous episode, so if you haven't listened to that one, I recommend going back to it. But sleep paralysis is also connected to this whole process. When you're in sleep paralysis, your body is still in a sleep state, while your awareness has become active. And yes, it can be frightening. You may feel unable to move. You may experience vibrations or sounds. You may feel like something is happening around you. And if you don't understand what's happening, your mind can immediately interpret it as danger. So the first thing is to remember what state you're in. Your body is still asleep. You are becoming aware of the transition between sleep and waking. If you want to remain in the experience, try not to fight the sensations. Stay calm, observe them. You can focus on the sensations themselves or shift your attention away from the physical body. And if you want to end the experience, of course, focus on making a small movement, such as moving your fingers or toes. Don't panic and don't try to fight it. Just focus on one small movement. And again, if fear is the main thing stopping you, listen to the previous episode because I go into that in much more detail. Another challenge is doubt. You wake up from an experience and then you start questioning everything. Was it a dream? Was it an out-of-body experience? Did I imagine the whole thing? And honestly, I don't think you need to immediately force yourself to answer those questions. Write down what happened, the exact experience, whatever you can remember, what you felt, what you saw, what happened before, what happened after. Then look at it later. Because when you try to analyze an experience immediately after waking up, you're often still tired and your memory may already be changing. Write it down first, interpret it later, and over time, look for patterns. Do certain sensations appear before certain experiences? Do you tend to have lucid dreams after waking up at a particular time? Does one technique work better for you? This is where your journal becomes useful, not just as a place to write, I had a weird experience, but actually record the details. That gives you something to learn from. And finally, you may feel disoriented after an intense experience. Maybe you wake up feeling like you're not completely back in your body yet. Maybe the experience was so vivid that normal life feels strange for a few minutes. Okay, don't immediately jump up and start scrolling through your phone. Give yourself a moment. Feel the bed beneath you. Move your hands, move your feet. Take a few slow breaths. Look around the room. Name a few things you can see, then get up. Walk around. Drink some water. Eat something if you need to. Go outside. Feel the ground beneath your feet. The point is to bring your attention back to your physical surroundings. And write down the experience while you still remember it. You might also draw something you saw or write about how it felt. Sometimes putting the experience into words help you process it. Now, when you look at all of these challenges, you can see that there isn't one magic technique that solves everything. If you're falling asleep too quickly, change your timing. If your mind is racing, give it an anchor. If you're losing focus, practice returning your attention instead of trying to hold onto it perfectly. If your body is uncomfortable, prepare your body and get comfortable. If you're losing lucidity, slow down and engage with the dream. If sleep paralysis scares you, learn to recognize the state you're in and decide whether you want to continue or wake yourself up. If you doubt your experiences, record them before you try to interpret them. And if you feel disoriented afterwards, take time to ground yourself. These are practical things you can actually work with. And you don't have to fix everything at once. Pick the one problem you run into most often. If you fall asleep every time, work in that. If you can't keep your mind focused, then work in that. If you become lucid and immediately you wake up, then practice stabilizing the dream. Don't try to completely change your entire practice overnight. Make one adjustment, then see what happens. Then adjust again, because that's really how you learn your own process. You experiment, you pay attention, you notice what works, and eventually things become more familiar. And when something becomes familiar, it usually becomes much less intimidating. Anyway, I hope you got something useful from this episode and have a few things you can try the next time you practice. If you want to dive deeper into astral projection and lucid dreaming, my book, Beyond the Edge, Journeys in the Astral and Dream Worlds, is linked in the description. And if you'd like to connect with other people who are interested in these experiences, come and join us in the Astral Gateway Facebook community. I'd love to have you there. If you're enjoying the podcast, follow the show and leave a rating if you have a moment. It really helps more people find it. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.